Aging is something we all experience. The idea of aging can scare a lot of people, and in our society, especially marketed toward women, there's a wealth of fear festered toward growing old. Just look at Gen Alpha's obsession with anti-aging products, despite them being like 10. They don't need these products, but society is saying otherwise. But even though it's a common experience, we don't often see a lot of prominent older characters in fiction. But Genshin just so happens to have one, that being Citlali. Now, I just want to say that, no, Citlali does not look old. There's some annoyance from the 500-year-old looks 20 trope, and yeah, it's well warranted, for reasons I'll later get into. But with that being said, even if you dislike the trope, Citlali is still amazingly written. Despite her appearance, she feels like she's old in every other aspect. So, how does Genshin make this amazing old lady? Let's look into it. Spoilers for Act 3 of Nat, and you have been warned. I also want to mention that I'm making this video during 5.2, we still have quite a bit to learn about her character, so some of what I say might have more added on in the future. Before we get into it, your quick reminder to like and subscribe. I make a ton of videos just like this examining Genshin's story. If you want to stay up to date with when I post, make sure to turn on notifications or join my Discord. We currently have a big holiday giveaway going on right now, where I'm giving away 3 Wilkins. One is just a general giveaway you can enter just by being in the server, and the other 2 are writing and art competitions that you guys will vote on near the end of December. You can enter the competitions until December 21st, and the general giveaway until December 24th. Best of luck, and hope to see you guys there. With that, let's get into it. Like I mentioned earlier, old people can be harder to write since not everyone has experienced that yet. I'm clearly not an old lady myself, but I still want to write well. While everyone can relate to being a child, this is the other side to the coin. But while this is natural and a good part of life, we don't see it a lot in modern media. While a massive part of this is definitely based on society and whatnot, it's also because there honestly aren't a lot of old people to draw on. When I was doing research for this video, finding anything useful was nearly impossible. I tried my best to research the psyche of people like this beforehand, but finding anything for this script is a genuine challenge. While we have lots of research on mental disorders like Alzheimer's and dementia, there's not a lot examining the mind of your average 80-year-old, which feels like a bit of an untapped potential source of good characters. So we need to tap into that. It's a whole large group of people that we can use and one that can be used well, as you see with Citlali. So I'm going to go through some of the common things we see with older people and how Citlali does them well. To start, I can already hear some comments. Edis, we do have old characters, and I'd like to ask you what role these characters play. 90% of the time, the old characters are just the wise mentors. And while this certainly works, it gets boring after a while. Old people are wise, yes, but a lot of the ones I've and a lot of my friends see are just exposition dumpers. And that's where I love Citlali's brand of the wise mentor trope. Citlali isn't directly a mentor to anyone but arguably Ororon, and even then, she lets him do his own thing most of the time. And completely forget the whole wise thing, at least in the traditional sense. Citlali isn't wise in the sense of giving advice and letting experience help her guide the youths, but she's absolutely experienced, which is another form of wisdom, and one we don't often get to see with old characters. The most we normally get is them talking about the wisdom they once had, but rarely do we see characters like Citlali actively using their wisdom. Throughout the story, her experience is raved about by others, and they show her power as well, weaving it into who she is as a person. She even has a whole side story about suffering from success. Of course, if you don't know anything about writing, show don't tell is the golden rule. With Citlali, we get to see her use her wisdom, which is infinitely more interesting than the grandma character raving about the olden days. Bottom line, wise old mentors are stale at this point. While you can still absolutely pull them off, you need to add some spice to make them memorable. And even if you're not doing wise mentor, give them wisdom and make sure there's some example of them actually using it. Another thing Citlali struggles from is genuine agism. After we and Aurora are caught meeting with the captain, Citlali rightfully scolds Aurora for conspiring with the Fatui. But when Aurora ignores her, she says this.
Sorry, Granny! Sorry, Granny! You know what? Fine. I'm perfectly aware that everything I say goes in one ear and out the other. You're all grown up now, so why would you listen to an old hag like me?
The important part here is the last phrase. Why would you listen to an old hag like me? Throughout Citlali's story, we see her feel like she's not taken seriously. When she meets with us and Paimon complains about her, her first response is to establish a presence. The way she was introduced was entirely excessive and unnecessary, but she likely did it on purpose, because she felt she had to disprove the insults. When she opens up to us, she confesses that to them. She feels that she's just seen as an eccentric old hag. To her tribe, She's seen as a one-dimensional grump, and since those stories about her have been around for so long, she doesn't get the chance to prove otherwise. Another, more obvious example of ageism is the tavern sequence. While Citlali is getting drunk, we meet an NPC called Chanka. I'm playing the dub, so I'll go off that interpretation, but I think it can stand for all languages. This NPC's VA did a great job. When she talks to us, she talks in a normal voice. When talking to Citlali, she speaks in a condescending baby voice that everyone hates. And even ignoring delivery between languages, she stands straight when talking to us and crouches when talking to Citlali, which is an extremely patronizing gesture. And she tends to talk about Citlali over her head, not letting Citlali talk as the independent adult she is. And sure, one could interpret this as Citlali being drunk. But Citlali also seems to get extremely annoyed with this treatment, and after we reassure her drunk self that she's still worthy of respect.
Didn't I teach you how to find phlogiston? You see? I know my stuff. I'm a good teacher. You tell him. That's more like it. About dang time someone showed me a little respect.
It certainly feels intentional that she's supposed to come off as experiencing some kind of ageism here, which is a real problem for many of the elderly. But enough with external ageism. I also want to look at her own internalized ageism. Throughout her story, it's clear Citlali feels incredibly useless. When we offer to pay for her meal, she takes offense. When we claim we just want to pay to comfort her, she isn't offended, but it's clear this is a fragile point if it's something she immediately jumps to. A big reason she takes care of Roran is because she feels less useless when she does so. When he keeps ignoring her advice, she doesn't feel like she's helping him anymore. There's a common complex I've seen, especially in strict religion, that women especially don't have value unless they're being a mother. This is obviously stupid, but it appears to be one reflected in Citlali's mind, at least to some degree. If she's not making use of herself, in her eyes she has no worth. While the mother aspect can work for this interpretation, it's just the fact that in general she doesn't seem to think she has much worth on her own. Even her own successes she degrades, saying that it discourages her tribe-mates from even trying to become as renowned as her. Seeing Auroran join an organization like the Fatui obviously hurt her on a deeper level than she lets on, seeing it as a validation of her own lack of self-worth. This low self-esteem seems to stem from, and yes it circles back, her age. When we catch a glimpse of Citlali's mind, it's clear she's anxious about what others think, especially the youth.
But is my way of speaking still not trendy enough? I've already tried my best to match their speech patterns. But given the looks on their faces just now, or perhaps I'm still not fashionable enough? But that can't be, right? Don't tell me they're still getting the impression that I'm super old-fashioned.
It's clear she tries hard to maintain the youthful facade, hence why she's so defensive when Paimon insults her age. She points out she's not wearing any makeup. When Paimon calls her Granny Eatsley, Citlali says that they should emphasize Eatsley, not Granny. She doesn't want to be seen as old. We don't know why she looks so young and is so long-lived in 5.2, but it would be interesting if this was a spell she cast on herself out of fear of growing old. And now, her entire life's purpose is proving that the spell was worth it, that she's not just growing old anyway, that she's still young and useful. But that's just a theory, and we'll probably get more information on that when we see her character stories. So, what does this mean in the context of general old characters? Well, this doesn't mean they all need to be insecure of their age. When writing them, you should be mindful of their world. How does it treat older people? How does your character react to aging? Even if their reaction is, I don't really care, make sure you know that about them. The final big topic we need to talk about with Citlali and old people is loneliness. One of the worst parts of getting old is that your connections begin to die. Your family, your friends, even people who just understand you as an old person, they begin to leave. Losing all your closest companions in such a short time can be hard for many people. And while this isn't a central theme of Citlali, the undertones are there. We learn a lot about Citlali's reputation among her tribe as being difficult to deal with, but she also implies that this is isolating for her. In some of the studies I read, old people who tend to be more lonely, their spouses, friends, siblings, their children, if they have any, are moved out and starting their own lives. That isolation is hard to get over and a big reason why so many people fear aging. She finds comfort in Auroran, and now that he's moved out, she constantly complains that she doesn't visit enough. Because beneath that grumpy grandma facade, she's barely concealing her loneliness. So, what can we learn from Citlali to write our own elderly characters? 1. Play with the character. Just as not all of us fit into one trope, not all old people are wise mentors. Avoid limiting older characters to purely advisory roles. Let them have active and impactful roles in the story if that's appropriate for your work. but at the same time, give your older characters experience. They don't have to be mentors, but they're not new to life either. 2. Show their experience in action. In a similar vein, show how their life experience shapes their actions, decisions, and problem-solving abilities. Perhaps Grandma lived through some time period that your main character is interested in. Or in the case of Citlali, her long life allows her to be one of the most accomplished members of her tribe. 3. If it's appropriate for your story, address ageism. Show how others treat them, whether through patronizing behaviors, condescension, or outright dismissal. Ageism is an incredibly common thing, and showing how the world around them treats their age can add interesting facets to their character. And even if ageism isn't an external problem, you should still ask how your character deals with their age. Is it a source of insecurities or pride? How does it influence their interactions with others? 4. Ask how they adapt to change. Old people have lived long lives and experienced much change from their childhood to now. Show how they grapple with changing roles and societal expectations, such as transitioning from caretaker to someone cared for. In fantasy settings, you can have a lot of fun playing with various cultures and expectations, but if you want to flesh out older characters, ask how their world affects their perception. What would they say looking back on those olden days compared to now? 5. Address loneliness and loss. Reflect how they deal with the loss of friends, family, or shared history. With age comes loss, and we humans are naturally social creatures. This is a problem for them. How do they address it? If applicable, show their attempts to connect with others, whether successful or not, and how they cope with solitude. 6. Highlight complex relationships, especially with the youth. Explore how they interact with younger generations. This can include mentorship, frustration, admiration, or a mix of these emotions. Are they content with their place of support to the future, or do they still want an active role? And given how old people have had time to know many people, show how others view them, whether through awe, fear, misunderstanding, and how this impacts their relationships. 7. Use subtext to show insecurity or pride. This is especially relevant if you're not in their perspective of your old person, but still want to flesh them out. While you've established to yourself how they feel about the aging, show the audience. Are they trying to convince others they're, quote, not useless yet, or have they accepted the end of their time? Or is it they're worth something that matters at all to them? Citlali's entire introductory scene shows us so much about her through simple context. We learn she's insecure about her age and wants to prove she's more than that, and yet she never outright says it. Honestly, this one scene has the masterful show-don't-tell characterization, and I recommend checking it out on your own to anyone looking to master that topic in general. So yeah, that's about it. If you enjoyed, like to boost my algorithm and sub to show me you like this and want to see more. If you disagree or have anything to add, let me know in the comments below. Just be civil as always. Make sure to check out my Discord to hopefully win a free Belkin and connect with a positive writing community. Anyway, enough from me. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night wherever you are, and hope to see you in the next one.